Hello students, welcome to the daily news analysis. I hope you are doing great. So we'll be understanding today the important news articles of 25th of March 2022. Let us begin with the same. On the very front page of the Hindu newspaper, you had a news with regard to India abstaining on United Nations General Assembly votes, right? We all know that UNGA is an international parliament. As we have parliament of our country, similarly the international parliament is called as United Nations General Assembly. So guys, as I said that in this international parliament there was a resolution against the invasion of Russia, right? So resolution against the Russian invasion, right? And in this sense it was the second resolution. In the previous resolution also India voted, India didn't voted, or India got itself absent from the voting, right? So India abstained from the voting, right? The resolution against the Russia, right? So if I talk about this resolution, 140 countries, favored this resolution. That means they supported this resolution, right? As you can mention on the screen, as you can see on the screen, guys, 140 countries favored this resolution, and 38 countries abstained from voting. Abstained means they neither voted in favor nor against, right? And this include India, China, right, and countries like Sri Lanka and South Africa, right? So South Africa, Sri Lanka, India and China, they abstained from voting. There are 5 countries which rejected or voted against this resolution, right? So in this way the voting took place for the second UNGA resolution against the Russian invasion in Ukraine, right? And India again has abstained from voting, right? Therefore there are many question marks on the Indian position. Even Joe Biden is saying that the Indian position is shaky. Why? Because India is not against the Russian invasion of Ukraine, as it is being shown in the UNGA voting, right, where it has kept itself abstained from the voting, right? Now the 5 countries that rejected this resolution are Russia itself, Belarus, then you have North Korea, then Eritrea, a North African country, and Syria, right? So these countries rejected this resolution, right? So this was the second resolution in UNGA against Russia, right? Now on the same day, guys, that is yesterday, Thursday, one more resolution took place against Russia. Now this was a procedural vote to actually decide that what action has to be taken, correct? And this was being proposed by South Africa. As you can see on the screen, the second resolution on Thursday, that is yesterday, was being proposed by South Africa for the action. I mean, what action has to be taken by the United Nations, right? So the second resolution was with regard to the procedural vote, right, on whether the UNGA ought to take up a second resolution. That means the time when you have to take another resolution, it has to be it is called as procedural vote, right? And it was being proposed by South Africa for the action, if at all, has to be taken, right? And however it didn't find the support, and it actually ceased to exist, right? So the resolution did not mention Russia, and the second was not put to vote because it did not had sufficient support, right? So in this sense 2 resolutions were being taken up. The first was definitely got the support, and 140 nations favored this resolution. The second was a procedural vote where it didn't got enough support to actually be floated in the on the floor of the house, that is in the UNGA, right? So these are the 2 resolutions which took place in UNGA. The third interesting thing which happened is a resolution of United Nations Security Council, another important organ of United Nations Security Council, which has 15 members, right? 5 are the permanent members and 10 are non-permanent, right? Now the 5 members, the permanent members, you all know, here also the resolutions take place, right? And in this sense, as you can see on the screen, the Security Council resolution happened, and it was actually, it was on a resolution. It was proposed by Russia on the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, right? It was co-sponsored by. It was definitely being proposed by Russia, co-sponsored by Syria, North Korea, and Belarus. They all are. I mean, they talk in support of Russia, but it failed to get adopted. Why? Because it did not get the required 9 yes votes for it to be passed, right? Guys, an interesting thing that has to be learned to all these students, that for UNGA voting, one country has one vote, right, for any resolution. Whereas if I talk about the Security Council resolution, one country has 9 votes. I repeat, one country has 9 votes. So when I talk about UNGA or United Nations General Assembly, every country has one vote, and it has one value. Whereas in Security Council resolution, votings, every country has 9 yes votes, right? So it requires 9 yes votes to pass, right? Which didn't happen. And Russia and China voted in favor of the resolution, while there are no country against, and India and the remaining Security Council members abstained from the voting, right? I hope it is clear. Moving to this explanation, the 2 resolution and the things we discussed, right? However, India has said, because here it is being clearly mentioned, and I expect a question on this, that who is the present permanent representative of India into United Nations. So it is T.S. Trimurti, right? So T.S. Trimurti, as you can see on the screen, T.S. Trimurti sir is the permanent representative to United Nations, right, UNPR. So they may ask you this question. Guys, however, India did said that Russia need to respect the United Nations Charter and the international law. Plus, it also has to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the states, right? India has also called for an immediate ceasefire. So guys, a bit about United Nations, although we discussed yesterday, you can just check that video. So United Nations today has 193 members. It was founded in the year 1945 after the end of the Second World War, and initially there were 51 members, and today there are 193 members, right? The President of the United Nations General Assembly, as I said, that there are 6 principal organs of United Nations: General Assembly, Security Council, ECOSOC, Trusteeship Council, which is no more working, it is defunct. Then you have International Court of Justice, ICJ, located at The Hague, Netherlands, and then you have the UN Secretariat, right? So the General Assembly is like the International Parliament, which we just discussed, and the President of the General Assembly is Shahid, Abdullah Shahid. He's from Maldives, right? Now, if I talk about the Secretary General of United Nations, it is Antonio Guterres, and he's holding the position since 2017. He comes from Portugal, right? I hope this information is clear to all. So guys, this is the voting pattern in the General Assembly. One country, one vote for in General Assembly, whereas in Security Council resolution, it needs at least 9 votes in favor and no vetoes, right? Guys, when I said that it is one country has 9 votes, I actually mean that, see, in the United Nations Security Council, there are total 15 members, right? 5 P5 plus 10, and these 10 are non-permanent, right? Now, although it looks that the majority of 15 is 7 plus 1, that is 8, but it is not so. United Nations Security Council has adopted that minimum 9 votes are required in support of any resolution. Minimum 9 votes, right? Plus, there must be no veto over this, right? So as it is, as you can see, the Security Council resolution needs at least how many votes? 9 votes out of 15 in favor, plus no veto has to be there, right, by the permanent 5 members, and permanent 5 are Russia, China, UK, France, right, and Britain, the P5 members, right. I hope it is clear. Moving to the next news article. Guys, there was a news in the Hindu today which talks about the Supreme Court's concern over the vacancies in the tribunals, right. Well, we all know that we have integrated judiciary. At the district level, we have district courts, at the state level, we have high courts, and at the union level, we have the Supreme Court, right. Now, the courts, students are already overburdened, plus there is huge vacancy of judges, especially if I talk about the high courts, right. So, in order to lessen the burden over the regular courts, the government decided, the parliament decided that why not have tribunals, right, to adjudicate the cases with regard to various government departments, right. So, all the service related disputes of, let's say, a GST department would be adjudicated in a tribunal which would act as a quasi-judicial body. Quasi-judicial means semi-judicial body, right. It is not completely judicial because it would have the members from their own department, right. So, as I said that, let's say GST department has a tribunal called as GST 80, right, GST 80. It would deal with the cases of GST department. Similarly, you have an administrative tribunal called as Railway Administrative Tribunal or RAT. So, it would talk about, it would deal the cases, or it would decide the service related matters of Indian Railways. Similarly, you have Income Tax Administrative Tribunal. It would adjudicate the cases with regard to Income Tax Department. Right. So, these are quasi-judicial bodies or semi-judicial bodies. They may not be completely judicial as they have the members of their own department, but they definitely help in, lessening the burden over the regular courts, because the cases with regard to Income Tax Department would be decided here itself. Railways would be decided in Railway RAT. GST would be decided in GST Administrative Tribunals, right. In this sense, it actually, lessens the burden over the regular courts, plus because it has the members from their own department, it ensures subject matter expertise. Right. So, subject matter expertise is there because income tax official is rightly placed to actually understand the nitty-gritties or intricacies of income tax related disputes, and he is the right person to decide the case, right. So, in this sense, it ensures the subject matter expertise, plus it also lessens the burden over the regular courts. Guys, although in the original constitution, which was adopted and enacted on 26th November 1949, we didn't had the administrative tribunals, right. So, it was added only later in the year 1976 when the emergency internal emergency was undergoing during Indira Gandhi's time. In the year 1976, an amendment was being made to the constitution named 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. It added a part into the constitution called as Part 14A. As you can see on the screen, Part 14A was added into the constitution, and two articles, Article 323A and 323B, were being inserted into the constitution, which deal with administrative tribunals, right. So, very, very important, and I expect a question on this because it has been again, this news has again been floated in the newspaper. So, Article 323A and 323B. So, 323A is administrative tribunals or tribunals dealing with the administrative departments, and 323B is actually tribunals for other matters, right. So, 42nd Amendment 1976 inserted Part 14A into the constitution, in turn with inserting Article 323A and 323B, right. So, guys, the objective of tribunal, which was to ensure speedy justice, to actually lessen the burden over the regular courts, is not being completely realized. Why? Because there is huge pendency, there is huge vacancy in the tribunals, and the posts are not being filled by the government departments, right. So, therefore, Supreme Court is concerned over huge vacancies in tribunals, and Justice Kaul, a judge in Supreme Court, is saying that what is the point of government, creating tribunals and then keeping the post vacant, right? Why should the high courts be asked to apply their minds to these matters, right? So, and they've also proposed that to close the tribunals and to itself make the appointments or to initiate the contempt, right? I hope it is clear. A very important aspect, and I expect a question on this. So these are some details about the tribunals that we already discussed and the huge vacancy. There are many issues which are being which are actually confronting the tribunals. Number one is definitely the question that whether they have the same degree of independence from executive as the regular courts have, because we know that judicial independence is a basic structure or basic feature of the Indian Constitution, and clearly there can be no interference of the executive in the judiciary. So it is something to ponder that whether the tribunals also have the same degree of independence from the executive, right? Second issue confronting the tribunals is definitely their position in the constitutional scheme, right? The third is the huge pendency or backlog of cases in the tribunals and the inadequate number of judges, right? So I hope it is clear. Moving to the next news article, very important. Recently 9 judges have been appointed to 5 high courts. 9 judges have been appointed to 5 high courts, right? Now this actually article, here I would be explaining about the high court and how the judges are being appointed in the courts. So after the center had initially objected, 9 judges had been appointed to the 5 courts, and the statement has been issued by the Department of Justice under Ministry of Law, and 6 of the new judges were advocates while remaining 3 were judicial officers. Guys, this, when it says that the 6 judges, 6 out of 9 were advocates and remaining 3 were the judges, judicial officers, or were the judicial officers, right? In this sense, we are very clear that even advocate can become a judge of the court, right? And even judicial officer can become a judge of the court, right? But for both to happen, they must have 10 years of practice, in experience or practice in the court, right? So Article 214 talks about the organization of high courts in India, right? So very important, please mark it up. Article 214 talks about the high courts in India. Now Article 217 clause 2 talks about the qualification of the judges into the high court, right? I repeat, Article 217 clause 2 talks about the qualifications regarding the appointment of judges into the high court, right? Number 1, the person has to be citizen of India. Second, he or she must be advocate in the high court and should have at least 10 years of practice, or should have held the judicial office in the territory of India anywhere for at least 10 years, right? So these are the qualifications mentioned under 217 clause 2, right? Being a judicial officer in the territory of India at least for 10 years, right? Guys, there has been a convention that normally the Chief Justice of the High Court is the one coming from any other part of the country, right? So he or she may be outsider, right? If I talk about the procedure of the appointment and the conditions of office of the judges of High Court, Article 217, as we discussed before this, Article 217 clause 2, similarly the same Article 217 also talks about the appointment and conditions of the office of a judge of the High Court. Guys, one thing we have to be very clear, that in order to be appointed as the judge let's say the Chief Justice of the High Court, he can be only appointed by the President under his name and seal, right? But the President also works on the concurrence of a collegium which consists of Chief Justice of India plus 2 senior most judges of Supreme Court. 1, 2, also they consider the opinion of the governor, right? So this is the collegium for the appointment of the Chief Justice of the High Court. I repeat, in order to be appointed as the Chief Justice of the High Court, the collegium consists of Chief Justice of India plus 2 senior most judges of the Supreme Court plus the governor of the concerned state, and then they recommend the President, who in turn is bound to accept their advice, and President in turn appoint the Chief Justice of the High Court, right? I hope it is clear, correct? If I talk about the normal judge or judge, any judge other than the Chief Justice of the High Court, for him also the same process follows, right? The same process would follow. The Chief Justice of India plus 2 senior most judges of Supreme Court plus, so this is there, and the Chief Justice of the High Court plus 2 senior most judges of the High Court, of the concerned High Court, and the governor of the state, of the concerned state, right? So this is the collegium, right? So the Chief Justice of the High Court, with advice from the 2 senior most judges of the High Court plus the governor of the concerned state, would recommend the name of the judge to the Chief Justice of India, who in turn would again take the consultation or advice from the 2 senior most judges of the Supreme Court, and then they would advise the President to appoint the judge of the High Court, right? The judge other than the Chief Justice of the High Court. So in this sense, the judges, the Chief Justice of the High Court and the judges other than the Chief Justice of High Court are appointed in the various High Courts, right? And it is clearly mentioned in Article 217 of the Indian Constitution. I hope it is clear. Now there is also a provision of an additional judge. Guys, normally not normally, definitely in the Constitution it is being clearly mentioned that the retirement age of the judge of the High Court is 62 years. That means the judge of the High Court has to retire once he attains 62 years in age, whereas the retirement age of Supreme Court judge is 65 years. Right, so there is a difference in the same, right? Now the retired judges are also being appointed as additional judges, to deal with the already overburdened judiciary. The retired judges are appointed as additional judges, and it happens according to Article 224, right, and not 217. So 224 talks about the appointment of the additional judges, right? I hope it is clear. Moving ahead. So the same thing that I just mentioned, and there is a policy of having the Chief Justice from outside the respective state. For example, if the Chief Justice of Rajasthan Rajasthan High Court is to be appointed, he or she must not be Rajasthan domicile. That means he or she must be coming from outside Rajasthan, right? So this is a policy which is being followed in India. 62 years, and the Chief Justice of the High Court and any judge of the High Court other than Chief Justice has to take oath before the governor under Article 219, right? So we have learned 217, we also have talked about 219, right? So the oath has to be taken before the governor, and the format of the oath is mentioned under 3rd schedule of the Constitution. So in the 3rd schedule of the Constitution, you will have the oath or the Shapat Patra of the judge, right, mentioned in 3rd schedule of the Constitution. So moving to the editorial section of the Hindu. Now there was an interesting article, guys, about the Russian NATO problem, or Russia's NATO problem. Students, this is the almost 1 month has passed after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and it started on 24th of February and we are today on 25th February. It has been 1 month already passed and Russia is not stopping its war. It is instead escalating, right? And the war is spiraling up, and it is also bombing and shelling the capital of Ukraine, which is Kyiv, right? So the war is not stopping anytime soon, and the world is under deadlock, right? Joe Biden, the president of America, is also planning to move Poland, to actually decide some action against Russia. Many sanctions have been imposed on Russia, but it is not stopping. The United Nations General Assembly has also come up with 2 resolutions against Russia, again without Russia, actually pressurizing Russia to stop the war. Even International Court of Justice also passed a resolution against Russia, but Russia is not stopping anytime soon, right? So it do have a ripple effects across the world, particularly for the NATO countries, right? Because NATO as a military bloc has not responded well against the Russian invasion, right? Although definitely yesterday, Thursday, Joe Biden, American president, NATO and European Commission, the 3 important bodies, the American administration represented by Joe Biden, NATO and European Commission, they have sat together and they have vowed to impose severe sanctions on Russia, much more harsher than the sanctions that they imposed a few days back, right? This time they are saying that we would cut off Russian banks from the financial system. All the Russian banks, all the top Russian banks would be cut off from the financial system. And in this sense, because guys, in order to win the war, you have to have money with you, right? Without money, you cannot win the war, right? So they are just cutting off the financial channel, right? So they are cutting off the top Russian banks from the financial system. Plus, they would also be stopping the technology exports, right? So when the Russia would stop its technology exports, its revenue would automatically dip down, right? In this sense, guys, this time the sanctions would be much more severe, would be much more harsh, and all the top Russian banks would be cut off from the financial system. All the technology exports from Russia would also be halted by various mechanisms, and in this sense they are directly targeting the Russian president, right? And this article in this sense talks about the very important act, and I expect a question on this, the founding act of the year 1997. Guys, after the disintegration of the Soviet Union in the year 1991, when the 15 Soviet states got disintegrated from Soviet, and it led to the emergence of the Russian Federation. It was being promised in the year 1997. There was agreement between the Soviet Union and the Eastern European Military Alliance, and this Eastern European Military Alliance was called as Warsaw Pact. Warsaw Pact, Warsaw is the capital of Poland. Warsaw Pact, which were the supporters of the Soviet. So an agreement was being reached between the former Soviet Union, Eastern European Military Alliance, NATO, and the newly created Russian Federation, right? And this mutual agreement was called as the Founding Act in the year 1997, right? And in this act, it was being made clear that there would be mutual relations, it would be based on cooperation and security, and it was being assured by NATO that it would not expand itself, it would not augment itself. But then we all know that in 1990s itself, in the late 1990s, it started its expansionist policy, right? And today NATO has increased to almost 30 countries, 30 members in it, right? So therefore Russia is actually being aggrieved because of this violation of Founding Act of 1997, and it is saying that NATO is expanding towards east and it wants Ukraine to be the part of the NATO. So NATO quietly underwent 5 rounds of enlargement during 1990s, right? And in this sense, Putin has got a reason to invade Russia. And definitely, guys, many thinkers are saying that because Putin is not able to ensure economic development in Russia, therefore he is, diverting the attention of the world media and the people of Russia over some strategic questions like Ukraine and NATO, right? Guys, we must understand that war is not the solution. War is not the means to peace and security in the world. I hope you understood this article. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the session. Wish you all the best. God bless you. Good day. Goodbye.